Hello and good afternoon. You're watching the Golden Bee Revolution episode 38. Going Aliala Nyamina Doro Maumala every Tuesday in Kamul invite na Nika Kacha Abeman na Fenna Barapuka Gambia Sambanyatola. To build the Gambia is an obligation between you and me, Puruka Apush Nyatola. No one else will do it, not an alien, not a jinn, or someone from outside to build it. We can do it because they are doing it. So with that, I keep saying, even if drinking is your talent, I will invite you to the Golden Bee Revolution. You show us how you drink to inspire other people. We're still moving with a topic which says, inspire me. And today we are going to talk about one of the most beautiful and one of the key things that one will do to build your nation, systematic change, and why the need for systematic change in the Gambia. I need not to go very far with this, but like you always know, you can monitor our activities on Facebook, that is Golden Bee Revolution TV show, or Star TV's page. Stay with us and join me. Let me welcome Honorable Halifa Sallah to tell us who he is, because we know you're in the political arena. We also know you're the Honorable National Assembly member of Serakunda, and maybe we'll be like, that's all that I know, but I want to know a little about you.
Well, that is very inspiring.
Thank you, sir.
I would say that at the age of 16 and a half is when I attended a symposium at a newly built school, then called Crab Island School. And the person who spoke was Stokely Carmichael. And the wife was a famous African musician, Mary Makeba, at the time. And I listened to his message. And it was a message that inspired me to choose the type of life I want to live. And that choice was to give my life day and night to eradicate the suffering of the African people, and by extension, the suffering of humanity at large. But then, my particular concern was the people who were oppressed, exploited and excluded all over the world. And because of the torment he went, and the struggles they waged, and seeing that Africa was the solution because they were transported to the other part of the world without their choice, and that they did not constitute the majority in a foreign land, but that on the continent there lies their origin, the land was available, and the people from whom they hailed constitute the majority in their homeland. And he inspired us to know that our progress would be their progress. Okay. Our failure would be their failure. And that we had no right to keep Africa poor after centuries of exploitation and impoverishment. I made a commitment that day that I will also search for knowledge, search for determination, search for commitment to that struggle to eradicate the poverty of the African people and make us live like all other human beings on this earth in liberty, dignity, and prosperity. I would say that this is what has made me who I am today.
Wow. That's very beautiful. Looking at the arena too, I would love to go deeply into your character, or I would call it maybe in your career, where I will just put it in a form of like a fashion, a suit. I will drive you to a little bit on this part where I'm going to fashion you with the arena where you started 1986 with the formation of a political party. And since then to up to date, I've been seeing a grand giant step being taken. People are inspired with your words. People are inspired with the name Halifa Sallah. People are inspired with the messages you are giving. But most people are not following it. Why do you think that's the case here?
Well, in my own scheme of things, the personality matters very little. But I see ideas as a material force capable of changing the destiny of nations.
Okay.
And when I look at the ideas I advocate for, I would say that I am convinced that I've made the impact that I've always wanted to make.
Oh.
Knowing fully well that the journey is long and we may not be there
Sure.
when we reach where we should. What is important is that at a given stage we add our contribution to achieving the aim. The starting point is even before 1986.
Wow.
I finished my first degree in 1975.
Okay.
And I left that school to go to do postgraduate at Howard University.
Yeah.
And in 1976, I came across Africans who some had even had their PhDs. I remember even one Gambian, Dr. Karanta Kale, who was known to me before I left to go to the United States, but he was much older. He even taught in the school that I learned from, and eventually he was part of this group
At that
of
early stage.
Africans in the United States who felt that the learning we had from the institutions only helped us to be able to do further research regarding what was needed on the continent. And we therefore formed a study group, the African Youth Movement for Liberation and Unity. I still remember Professor Kari Kari, who was part of that group.
Okay.
And I can see many elements who came back to the continent and tried to do what we said we would do.
Sure.
That is
Just to implement the
Yes,
message.
So for me, that was the starting point
Okay.
of meeting the Samsars, the Sidi Jatas, and ultimately building the basis of building a party. Because the objective of a party is to transform it into a school through which we can educate others to become part of that group, who ultimately society will select and give the responsibility of formulating policies and programs for the society.
That's beautiful.
So from that angle, 1986, what we met was a Gambia where the countryside had no link with the urban area.
Wow.
Politics was not about the sovereignty of people. People still saw politics to be a domain of those who by divine power had managed to attain the position to rule over society. People saw politics as rulers and the ruled. And if you go to the countryside at that time, hardly do you find anybody who talk about an economy, a constitution, an executive, a legislature, a judiciary. Hardly did you hear those terms. Not only among the rural poor, but even the elite who are part of society. I can guarantee you that if you were to do polls now, and you limit it to the generation that were there when we started to build, you will find out that 99.9% had never seen a constitution, not to talk about what is in there.
Wow.
Even lawyers, and I want you to do that,
I know.
independent study.
Sure.
Even the lawyers knew the law,
Oh.
the cases, but
But
hardly
hadn't seen it.
seen a constitution or to read it.
Oh. It's more like living in a blank line.
So essentially, our duty was to eliminate that darkness
Yeah.
and bring ideas to a population that had been isolated and kept ignorance for centuries during the colonial period up to the period of being a republic.
Sure.
So we thought that our duty was to begin that process of conscientization, of raising the awareness of the people, knowing that the awareness will become a material force that will transform their minds so that ultimately they'll transform their society.
Absolutely.
We saw no other way, just like you said.
Sure, very well.
When we came into being in 1986, there were opposition parties.
Yeah.
But you will see that most of those opposition parties other than the constituencies that they controlled, hardly could expand into other areas. The resources was not available. The media was not
Very
there.
big,
So
was not concerning clean and clear information to the
could
people.
not really reach out to the population to even explain their programs, even if they had it.
Very well.
And in many places, people had already settled to the idea that there was divine right to rule. So anybody who was there by divine right, and you should not oppose that person. If you do so, you are Satan in human guise.
And been named with different names.
So in essence, this is what we meant.
Yeah.
But we were able to penetrate the communities, visit the villages, held meetings at the Bantu Bars, and got communities to listen to us when they hardly would come out to listen to an opposition party. I think that was Doy's greatest achievement, that we could go to villages where political parties considered to be opposition had never had the guts to even stand and speak. Otherwise, sometimes they will even beat you up. In some areas, we were even confronted at the beginning. But when we issue the message, that is what helped people to see that no, what these people
are saying and what is being said
is not about dividing us. It is about helping us to understand what our society is all about.
Absolutely.
So consequently, Doi eventually was seen everywhere to be a party aiming to enlighten.
And unite people.
And consequently, it gave us a space to be able to operate. I must say that in 1994, by the time the coup d'etat occurred, Doi had built up its integrity among the young population. They were reading. Those who could, at the level of colleges, were reading, teachers everywhere. So the support base of among the literate was much higher than many political parties. Not only that, because we were speaking in our local languages and conveying political messages that the elites could not convey in the past in their local languages. Because when they want to do so, they are, English.
They will put translation, so very well it comes
very difficult.
Very well. So there will be misinformation and sometimes misinterpretations.
But people saw that we were translating the very ideas we were conveying in English to the population at large in their own languages. And I must say that by 1994, we had a more enlightened population than before 1986. So from 1986 to 1994, the symposia that we held, the meetings that we held, the rallies we had, all served to create a new mentality. And we believe that without the change of mentality, you cannot have a change of society. So the focus of Doi was to change mentality. And you can see in 1994, when the coup makers took over, they turned to Doi to at least offer us 2 ministerial posts. So if we did not have integrity and clout, obviously they will not do that. So we must say that the coup makers knew the impact we made. And knew that, well, by assimilating us in their government, that will build the integrity of their government. That's the only way I can interpret it. But because we were conscious that our mission was to build the sovereignty of the people, we became the republic so that we could have the sovereignty of the people. And that had not been achieved because the people in school had not been educated to know that monarchy had come to an end. Now they were sovereign and sovereignty resides in them, and they were the one who will have to elect their executive, their legislatures, so that ultimately they will serve them. So we wanted that to be clear to the population. And it is that population that should come and vote and remove governments and put governments in office. Then their authority will never be trampled on. So because of our consciousness that power must emanate from the consent of the people and must be exercised to promote their welfare, we refused to join the coup makers. We simply told them, yes, you can remove the head of state, decapitation, but you cannot decapitate the people from being the owners of power and owners of the republic.
Very well.
So you must...
By using the weight of shedding light on how a nation should be built. Okay.
So, in short, we told them that, well, what you need to do is to allow the political parties to operate,
Okay.
allow civil society to operate, don't violate any rights, and then we sit down on a national forum, in a national conference, to discuss how to shape the country after your takeover. Of course, they rejected that. Of course, we continue to perpetuate that, and ultimately, because of their own internal contradictions, they had to come and see that they cannot survive without consultative processes. So they started the consultative processes, which led to the creation of a Constitutional Review Commission, eventually in 1996 to return to elections, and eventually we have what had ultimately become a 22-year rule of those who took over power in 1994.
Very well, absolutely. So I would love to step in here. In short, I will say, like, I'm made to believe that since 1986 to 1998 means you're working on systematic change, because the people that took over came illegally. Later, they wanted to pass through some waterways to get there, but because of like the technical know-how is very, very little there, and you try to move people from the light, and now these people are trying to push it where a commission is set to review the past which happened. So it's like you are on the verge of reforming institutes. That was the message sent to them. And looking at it now from 1998 up to 2020, that is 2020, we've seen that there are so many defaults coming to where we are right now. We've seen that some institutes are still operating on a way I will say the light is not serving. Do you think because there is something missing that this light is not serving, because we have a modern world right now, we can access to different political ideologies, where we have socialism, we have communists and the like, where you have countries like Rwanda and China and other countries are boosting their economy using part of these lines, but still we are focusing on the same area. Do you think because you are not able to convince them enough on this part of way, or do you think the mistake still lies on the people of the Gambia?
Well, I think this question needs to be thoroughly addressed.
Okay.
We are looking at two things at the same time.
Sure.
Number one, DOI as a party,
Okay.
and the Gambian people
Sure.
as the custodian of political power.
That's right.
DOI having a role. The role that we see, DOI was 8 years old when the coup occurred.
Yeah.
And we want people to also maintain that trajectory.
Absolutely.
That DOI existed only for 8 years under the PPP government.
Okay.
And tremendously changed mindset during that period.
Very well, in a period of 8 years.
And the coup period lasted from 1994 to 1996
to 97. Then
in 1997 we had the elections, National Assembly election, and a new constitution came into being.
Sure.
But then something happened
Okay.
in 1996 when they were restoring electoral processes.
Okay.
They were not interested in democratization.
Oh.
They were interested in just the technicality of having a constitution and also having elections, but not the way we envisage it. That is a constitution that will allow every Gambian citizen to participate in its making, and eventually will allow all Gambians to enjoy the freedom of expression as well as freedom of political association.
Okay.
You can see when they were coming into 1996 to go to elections, within a period of 3 weeks, they declared that now political parties can go and register.
Okay. I was like
Participate in
moving in a
elections.
step now.
Now, who will go and register? Well, DOI was in existence
Okay.
in 1986 up to 1994. PDP was in existence.
Okay.
NCP was in existence, GPP, as well as PPP. Now, they said you could go and register.
Yeah.
But then they said the parties that participated in the government during the PPP era will not be registered.
Oh.
And the personals will not be registered.
That's restrictions now.
So therefore, the PPP will not, GPP will not, NCP will not be registered.
Okay.
So that means that DOI could go and register, PDP could go and register, but these three other parties will not be able to register.
Okay.
So for us, our tactic was, if we are to accept it, to go and register, then we are accepting that we were no longer existing.
Yeah, for the past 8 years, what you've been doing, I will be like a work that is not considered.
And for us, we were defying that the registration, the banning of political parties. That's why we were in there. That's why we were eventually arrested and so many processes took place.
Okay.
Now, if you go and register, then it means that you've accepted that you were banned.
Okay.
So our tactic was, let us all agree to have one independent candidate.
Okay.
And all democratic forces will support the independent candidate. And the independent candidate, after victory, will only serve for 1 year.
Okay.
And that 1 year will be taken as transition to build the institutions and build the instrument of the state.
Oh.
Build a constitution where we all participate and build the institutions of the state so that we can have a level ground for multi-party contests. Because that was not the case under the PPP regime.
Sure.
So, but it seemed that the PPP, NCP, GPP were in a haste to continue to exist.
Okay.
And it was just 3 weeks for election. So instead, they decided to create their own coalition, and the coalition became the UDP.
Okay.
So that UDP coalition became a mighty coalition supported by the former ruling party, former opposition party, and
some other
PPP.
Yeah.
So whilst the coup makers also, because of controlling power, were able to mobilize the former Yai Compins and the chiefs, the Alcanos, all those who had clout on the PPP regime. So therefore you have these two powers, and the political situation changed completely. Now in 2001, you can see that this change started to occur again. The regime saw that, well, by banning these parties, it had enabled them to group together. Then it decided to recognize them
so that they can
so that they could split. And of course, the split took place where they were eventually stood in election. But even though he stood, a very popular character under the First Republic, but because of the changed political situation, people thought that a coalition was stronger than supporting the NCP. And if you look at the votes, you can see that his votes were very small in 2001. And that also led him to see that a coalition against the PPP would be the best thing for him to do. So he formed a coalition with the APRC, and that's why in 2002 you can see that the UDP even boycotted the National Assembly election. And instead of APRC allowing NCP to take control of its stronghold, the Bakaus, etc., the Badibu, they said, no, everybody must stand APRC. And that's how APRC had inroad into the terrain of the NCP. So the political character of the country changed. And of course, they also changed its tactics. We move more now into coalition building than individual party.
Because you want to fight with a coalition body and you want to fight in an incumbent, so that means you need to have more power. That will be strategy.
So coalition building.
Okay.
And of course, that is what gave rise to the NAD coalition. And the NAD coalition had one simple agenda, that let us get one person. Let us get one person to serve, one person to be elected.
Okay. That means like you have to get on to the coalition side.
Yes, that, we have coalition.
Sure. Okay. I think we will just take a short break. When we come back, we will continue with this getting communicated by the technicians that we have to take a short break, and I come back shortly. back, and we apologize for that short technicalities we had, and it's accepted in life. Sometimes there are some things, they are avoidable, but some are not avoidable. We apologize, and I hope you will accept our apologies, allowing him to flow on the line where he stops from the last one. So,
thank you very much. You can see then we move into coalition building, giving rise to the NAT coalition. But we were conscious of one fact, and I hope that fundamental fact will not be lost in the whole discussion.
okay.
We were conscious of the fact that we still needed to build a nation of sovereign people.
Oh.
That, yes, elections had taken place. Multi-party system existed. But one thing that was missing in Gambia and missing all over the continent is unifying a people to be one sovereign people. Irrespective of that diversity into ethno-linguistic groups, into religious groups, into gender differences. Essentially, each Gambian has one vote, and that vote symbolizes that that person is a sovereign Gambian, equal in sovereignty to all other sovereign Gambian, and together we constitute the nation. And that nation is what you must now transform into the building block of development. That it is through the division of labor of those citizens, based on their various competences, that you build the architecture of the state and run services for everyone. We were conscious of that. So we felt that any coalition is built is in fact a healthy development where we remove from the disparities and put people together with one single aim of bringing about change, but a change that no party will take ownership of or no individual, but a change that will bring about a transition as if Gambia was coming back to be born, just like we were born in 1965. That this was seen to be the starting point of a new beginning. Let's call it a rebirth.
Yeah, very well, a rebirth.
So that rebirth of a new Gambia would have required all of us to put our party differences aside and concentrate, for example, on instruments like a constitution, so that we have the constitution right, and the constitution will create the ownership of power by the people, the type of institutions that are necessary, a judiciary that will be independent, impartial, and ready to serve, to enforce the laws of the country, and administer and enforce the laws of the country, an executive that will make the right policies, a legislature that will carry out oversight, will have a security apparatus that will know that they must move away from being an instrument of coercion to become an instrument of protection, because that's the objective of the security apparatus. A civil service that will be seen as an instrument of service rather than an instrument of rule, so that anywhere you find the civil servant, you will know that I am paid by the people and I'm here to promote the general welfare of the people. So we thought that any transition that we will have from the First Republic, Second Republic, must yield a Third Republic with this fundamental architecture. And that is why if you see the NAT architecture, we said that whoever was to be selected through a convention, through a primary, or through consensus will ultimately only serve one term, and that person will not be affiliated to any political party, but will run a government that will bring the instruments and institutions and practices, managerial practices and mentality, mindset among the Gambian population that will create one Gambia, one nation and one people. That was the objective of NAT. We started, we almost succeeded, we did it. But you can see that we pursued that agenda in 2011 to the United Front. We called for all to come together so that we can have a convention and select someone. But that also did not succeed. We split into two coalitions. You know, the UDP, PPP and GMC coalition, and the DOI, NRP and GPDP coalition. And when they went to the vote, what did they have? 11% for the DOI, NRP, GPDP, and 17% for the UDP, PVP, GMC. So none could really took over the country.
Absolutely.
And of course, from there, we began
To preach again.
to build again consensus. You can see that we did not participate even in 2012 election.
Yeah.
So the issue was not just election for its sake. The idea was, how do we effect a change that will create the possibility of giving Gambia a new start?
Sure.
And obviously, 2016 coalition had that fundamental objective.
Oh.
And that fundamental objective could have been realized because we did attain the objective of regime change, removing the person who was there before. And we needed to move to the other level. And the level is, how do we change the system so that we create the Gambia that everybody aspired to be living?
My next point is where I wanted to come. That is in 2016. I was not living by that time when there was a time when Gambia's fiat dalasi was equivalent to pound. That's where the name came. And Gambia was one of the greatest countries that exports groundnut and so many other things, where we have almost everything that it takes us to become a great country. If you compare the Gambia to Singapore or maybe Bahrain or Qatar, which are countries of they've got their independence almost 20 years after the Gambia's born. So we could have seen that translated in 2016 because we felt, most Gambians, or I would say average Gambians felt, is because of the then regime that is not allowing us to be at a dreamland. So we had that changes in 2016 and everyone was shouting because that message, or maybe the light that the PDOIS has been preaching in 8 years, which is able to influence the people here. I will bring it here, where people who are influenced, people who are educated, they've seen the light at the edge of the tunnel. They've get there. There is a systemic change that occurred due to illegal way, and people are learning from darkness to coming into light. That could have been translated in 2016 if we were present in the government. But we've seen you stepped out. Is it because you don't want the light to be preached in 2016 to 2021, or you just want to preach the light under your own umbrella?
That is an important question. We have seen the development that took place.
Yep.
One must understand what was at stake.
Okay.
We did not want any party to take ownership of 2016.
Absolutely, that was the mindset.
No,
Coalitions.
That is why we said that anybody who will be selected at the convention would have to resign from his party and stand as an independent candidate. That was the objective. And looking at how government work, the executive makes policies. They can only draft laws, by draft bills, and bring it to parliament. You see, Gambians did not fully understand the role of parliament.
Even from the campaign, you can see a number will be saying, I will build roads for you, I will do that, which is absolutely out of it.
So for us, it was very clear as we were building the coalition that we were building pillars. The first pillar was the executive. And that we had to have that right. The second pillar was the legislature. We had to have that right. By being in the legislature, as I am now, and if you were to ask National Assembly members what role I'm playing at the legislature, I would not speak for myself. I think they'll be able to say, yes, it is good that this person is in the legislature, because the work of oversight, scrutinizing policy, scrutinizing bills, passing them into law, would be considered to be the most important area of democratic governance. Government is one. Governance is another thing. Every institution has a governance element. But the government is the executive government of the country. And bear in mind that under Section 95 of the Constitution, Parliament can remove a minister from office. But under Section 712, the President has capacity, has power to appoint anyone. But at the same time, the President has power to remove anyone. So we have a system which is an executive system, an executive presidency. So we agreed in the coalition that the president will not exercise those powers, will in fact resign in 3 years so that we can have an election where all parties will be able to participate, because we expected that the 3-year transition will be the transition of a coalition government, coalition National Assembly, coalition councils, coalition reality everywhere, so that we shape the instruments, the institutions, and the thinking of society. Use your media so that everybody will be so enlightened. The mindset would have been completely changed.
Sure.
Because before, people thought that elections cannot remove a head of state from office.
Very well.
That was the norm.
I was even made to believe that.
Yes.
I cannot remove this current incumbent, only Pauline, and he will even be saying it on the media.
Yes. So that was the belief of people.
Okay.
But we had to change that mindset. And that mindset was definitely changed in 2016 when people went to the ballot and removed someone who had all the wealth on earth and all the power on earth. So consequently, that was a great victory, not only for Gambians, but also for the whole world. So in short, the idea there was that the person who will come and occupy the presidency will not be occupying it as an executive president, but as a coalition president who understand that we just wanted to effect a change, and therefore will accept that the government will be a coalition government where people will be there. If you can remember, and I want people who ask the question then, where were you when the government took over? Of course, I was here when Barrow was out there, and the initial phase, everything was in my hands. And of course, when he came, everything had to be handed over. And when we ran things, you could see the civil service, when he was in Dakar, until Jammeh left, you didn't see any looting in this country. Nobody was killed in this country for putting, you see, real stability. So it was a very smooth transition. We put the civil service to work, we put the security apparatus to work, all the institutions to work, and nothing was lost by anybody in the country. So that was a very smooth transition. Now, the next role was to build a cabinet that will be making policies. But can you all remember December 2016, before the Christmas holidays, and the message of the president, New Year and Christmas message of the president, we said we were going to build an agency for sustainable socio-economic development as a transitional institution. And the agency will build an expert bank where everybody who has something to contribute will send your curriculum vitae, and we'll have a data bank where all those people would have been put online, so that we all know what is needed. And what we said was that before the president assumes office on the 19th of January, we would have put those experts to work closely in clusters. Those clusters of experts will look at all sectors of the Gambian economy and see the ministries that Gambia had, what they were doing in terms of policy, strategic plan and programs, the resources available. So all that would have been documented, and then the role would be to work out a short, medium, and long-term plan, but focusing more on the short and medium, so that it will be a transitional program rather than a national development plan. It would have been a transitional development plan, which we would have, let's call it, is in fact a program for sustainable socio-economic development. That's what it should have been, rather than a national development plan. That was the earlier suggestion. So if we had done that and had this team that will work with these clusters and create all this, then you can create benchmarks and say that, well, in 1 year, we'll be able to achieve this. Constitutional reform, legal reform, civil service reform, security sector reform. We'll be able to put that in the agenda. Second year, third year, and then we move and end the transition. So I must say that that was put aside and before my very eyes. So it was very clear to me that what was more important at that material time is to save the National Assembly. Because you could see the
That's where you're more needed than the other side.
The director of the executive was already clear. People were called by the president and offered ministerial posts, and they will take it without a coalition meeting to work on what the cabinet how it will be constituted and what will be done. So it was very clear the direction that the executive presidency was emerging, and I'm not somebody who lack intelligence. I can see things very clearly, and internally we know.
You felt there was a plan change, and you rather stay out than being part of.
Not staying out is rather to save it. We were saving the situation by ensuring that the National Assembly has the clout to guide the process.
Okay.
If I stood as a coalition National Assembly member, I would have had to resign from DOI.
Yeah.
Just like President
Like what he did. Okay.
To stand as a coalition independent candidate in the National Assembly.
Okay.
Of course, that is a sacrifice. It's like we are sacrificing our party.
Very well, yeah. The job that you've been doing since 1986.
Yes, we are saving the country. So that was the idea that if we all come as coalition independent National Assembly members, we have the power to guide the process.
Okay.
So that the process will not be derailed in any way. But obviously there too, when it came to National Assembly, partisan politics had the upper hand. People felt that, well, this is just a natural competition, for power. So clearly the coalition moved away from the trajectory of rebirth of a Gambia to political parties operating and contesting in a normal way to take over power in the Gambia. That's the reality.
Okay, in this sense, I would like to put discussions to you. Anytime I invite people in here, I give them the opportunity to either address the minister directly or the president directly based on the line you're flowing. And here I see you'll be very, very good here to send an advice to the president here. I will give you the chance to speak to the president directly on the area you think he really needs to work in to inspire him to see that area. Probably it could be in one area. Perhaps it's like this, based on the systematic change here, I would call it. Is it because of the health side is falling? Is it the educational system? Or is it we need a total changes of the system that is in play? So I will give you the chance to do it.
The message is very clear, and I think he understands the message because we've worked together very closely.
Okay.
The message is that the role that he was assigned to play was not to run an executive government.
Okay.
It was to run a transitional government. But now that is history. And he is no longer the person he was.
Okay.
He is now the leader of the NPP. And the objective is to contest in any elections in order to control the executive, the National Assembly, and run a government as if he had won the elections on the NPP ticket in 2016. So that is the reality, and we must not run away from that reality. My conception is that because he was not elected to run an executive presidency, I do not expect that he saw the health problems, the massive unemployment, problems that we have today. My expectation was that we will build a new constitution, build new institutions, make sure we reform the civil service, make sure we reform the security, so that we give Gambia a new start. That was the original agenda. It seems that that is no longer achievable within the time frame that is left. What is important, therefore, is for the president to recognize that the strength that he can display must be directed at least achieving a third republic.
Okay.
Building a constitution that is worth supporting by the Gambian people, so that at least we have a constitution that will give Gambia a new start, is what is possible to achieve. And he had made that promise in the manifesto that he submitted to the IEC when the coalition submitted his manifesto, that the aim is to build a third republic, and that third republic is inconceivable without a Republican constitution. So the key issue that should be of primary importance to him and to the nation at large is to revisit that constitution and look at the technicalities that are required in order to bring it to fruition. Failing which, he has no legacy to leave behind. So in my view, that is one concentration that should attract his attention, and I believe that if it does, the rest is left to the Gambian people. I keep on telling the Gambian people that it is not for me to tell President Barrow how to govern. It is to say how I believe the Gambia should be governed, and it is for him to pick from what is said by everybody and see what he can put in.
You're serving it on the table, so he picks. It's more of like shopping for him, okay?
Yes, and that's precisely my role at the National Assembly, and the role of every Gambian who wish well for the Gambia. That regardless of the government that exists, give the ideas that the country needs, facilitate its development. Because all of us must demand from our country what our survival needs. We must give to our country what empowers it so that it will be able to give us the survival that we need. So in that respect, we must again emphasize that Gambia still needs a new start. And what is important is to have a genuine multi-party system where freedom of expression will not be suppressed. The media will amplify all the voices that wishes Gambia well, and those voices that wish Gambia well would have to be accommodated by the media, and in that respect, the growth in thinking, in awareness will expand, and I'm convinced that that will become the material force that will eventually bring about the change of system that anybody would desire, and not only for Gambia but for Africa, a change of system that is sustainable and permanent because it emerged from the enlightened minds of the people.
Absolutely.
And therefore nobody can suppress it again.
Sure.
So I'm convinced that out of 2016,
sure,
the lessons are clear, and that the people control power.
Sure.
Otherwise, Jammeh would have still been here.
Absolutely.
He was removed by the might of the people. And therefore, those people should never go to sleep again. They should know that if they are poor, well, it is for them to eradicate that poverty.
Sure.
But that is inconceivable without changing mindset, examining the policies of government, and giving responsibility to those who can deliver.
Sure.
That is the only way to build a new nation.
Absolutely. I would love to get to the viewers. If you want to make that change, you have to look into the mirror. That person you're seeing, begin to change with that. I hope you've been inspired with the messages we've heard from him, starting from the history, working with the mindset to build the Gambia. Allow us to go for a short break. When we come back, we're going to tell you how you will be inspired to make the Gambia the best country in Africa, the best country in the world, and the best country in the planet Earth. I think this is the same statement I'm saying. If Singapore does it, London, Washington DC, the countries you can name it, done by human being, who are we? We have the same limbs as they have. We have the same manpower as they have it. Why not we? Why are we not prepared to do it? No one will do it. It is our time. Let's watch, let's listen, learn from people who can do it. We will follow their steps and build the Gambia. It's not going to be 2060. It's not going to be 2035. It is going to be now. The changes has to be now. We are going to change it, and we will change the narrations. Join us after this short break, and we continue discussions with the final message from him to the youth. How can we take the lead to put this country on the strongest ladder, to put this country at a place where we will keep celebrating it? It is not only going to be the United States of America, but it's going to be the Gambia, and the Gambia. We must defend the red, white, blue, white, green color. It is no one else but you and I. Let's take the break, and when we come back, we continue. I was once said, if you want to search for knowledge, be very, very humble. Have a vision, work for it, and you will win it. And to the person you're going to get your message from, sympathize him. Don't drag him down, but punish him to tell you all that he knows. I will not let him go free. I will have to push him. I will have to push him. I will have to learn from him with the best of my humility that I can do to get myself down. But you're the one who is watching. I know you will be like, I think he has to keep quiet, let him flow. Let's enjoy from him. I will do all my best to bring out the best from him because he's been doing the best, so we can learn from him. This is not going to be the first time. It's not going to be the last time. Inspire me is the point. Inspire me is the topic. I hope you are inspired. This was a general message to the to the Gambian, to the president, to Africa at large, and the world must hear who we are. Gambians, we've done a great work in 2016, but I tell people that is just the beginning of everything. What we have in the Gambia here is more than what other people can have. If you go to the IEC, you go to the ICC, you go to UN, everywhere we have Gambians doing it. So why are we not doing it for our home? The time is the homeland. People in the diaspora, wherever you are, please consider your home. You've worked about 30 years, been outside, 20 years outside. Come 1 year in the Gambia, we will do it. That systematic change doesn't have to depend on the government to do it, or us being at home here singing it. Come home. We've learned a lot in the Western world, in America, in Asia, and all other parts of the world. Come and implement the same law in the Gambia here, we can do it. It's not only about the salary you will receive, but it's about the love, the affection you will build in people's mind, the legacy you will set in your country, then you will be celebrated. You can never be like them. You are there, but you will never be like them. They will celebrate you because you are helping them. But once you retire, they are tired of seeing you. Come home, work, you retire, we will never be tired celebrating you. Let's celebrate Mr. Halifa. Celebrate us today. We will learn from him, and like I said, you will forgive me not to press your heart, but I will have to do it by bringing out the best in you. I want to have the best from you because I don't know when can I have you again, and it is a blessing. It is more like a wisdom sharing the same table with you. You've been inspiring not only me, not only Gambians, but every human race. I'm so much in love with your brain. I'm so much in love with your mind, with your messages, and they are in love with your messages too. What message do you have for the Gambian youth?
I have gone through my own test, and that's why I'm capable of being young, even though advanced in age. Because I left this country when I was 17 and a half to go to a boarding school, in the United States, and I was the only black person in that school. So I knew what challenge was. But because I knew who I was, nobody could discriminate me. That is why I don't believe that anybody can discriminate the African if we know who we are.
Sure.
We have the greatest possibility of shaping the destiny of humankind.
Sure.
But that is not possible until we accept that we own ourselves and we own our country. So the starting point is to build a nation. The young people must build a nation. There must be a rebirth. And that rebirth comes from love of country and love of people. Today, if you go to the hospital ill, you care less whether the doctor is a man or woman, is Mandinka or Serapule or Jola, is a Christian or Muslim. All you need is somebody who understands the body, understands illness, and can cure you.
Sure.
And when that person cures you, you will appreciate the person. Appreciation comes from service. If you send your child to school, you care less where that person came from, the teacher came from. All you are interested is the teacher has the knowledge and has the love to be able to deliver that knowledge and those values that will enable your child to have knowledge, values, and skills to be able to add value to society.
Absolutely.
Fundamentally, we are born into this world. So the world owes us, Gambia owes us what we need to grow up as babies, as toddlers, all the way to be able to acquire knowledge and skills and values.
Sure.
So we cannot continue saying, don't ask what your country can do for you. We must ask what the country must do for us. What the country must do for us is to protect us when we are babies, give us the knowledge, values, and skills as we grow so that we can take charge of society and add our own quota to its development and protect others. That's what we owe to each other, and that's what the society owes to us. Ask what you need from society, but also be ready to give what the society needs, to give your fullest.
Sure.
For the fullest development of the society. Ask just the barest minimum what you need to live in dignity, in prosperity, but be ready to give to society what will enable it to continue generation on and on to be able to address the needs for liberty, dignity, and prosperity of the people. So my real message to young people is that the young person is the father of the older person.
Sure.
It is that young person who must develop values, knowledge, and skills to be the adult of tomorrow who will take charge of the destiny of society.
Sure.
But when we say young, we are not talking about those who are above 18.
Sure.
At the age of 18, don't see yourself as a young person anymore. See yourself as a leader.
Sure.
Before 18, yes, but after 18, see yourself as a leader.
Sure.
And once you see yourself as a leader, you start making choices to know that a leader must be a responsible human being.
Sure.
A leader must be an animator. A leader must be an inspirer.
Oh.
A leader must always search for the truth. A leader must build confidence. A leader must also earn confidence.
Sure.
Let's have a generation that respect each other. And rather than the insults that we heap on each other, to downgrade, to undermine, to lower integrity, let's build a nation of people with integrity.
Sure.
But that can only come by inspiring each other.
Sure.
I remember when we were much younger and in the United States, because of the degradation of the people of African descent. We came to a point where when we shook hands is respect.
Yep.
So that you shook hands and you are injecting the spirit of
Yeah.
dignity to the other and say,
Sure.
respect brother, respect brother.
Sure.
That is the culture that we must build. A new culture of self-respect and collective self-respect, respecting all citizens, all Africans, and eventually all human beings. I am convinced that the starting point of this discourse is, of course, general.
Sure.
But we can go deeper and deeper into the specifics to know why Singapore is Singapore.
Yeah.
And why should Gambia move to a trajectory that it can even go beyond Singapore?
Yeah.
Gambia has resources, terrestrial resources, marine resources, atmospheric resources. Look at our ocean.
Yeah. Very rich.
Others are coming and taking everything that is there.
100%.
And when they go there, they process it and give jobs to their own people. Eventually, the tunas and all are brought back into our shops as tuna fish, as sardines, and we go and buy it.
Sure.
Whilst our people sit down without work. When we can get those trawlers, get our people trained to be the captains, to run those trawlers, to go and bring the fish, offload it in the Gambia, and it can be processed here and taken elsewhere and utilized and generate a lot of jobs. We have the capacity.
Very well. Sorry, I want to interject here. I suggested to one of the MPs I invited here, why are we allowing foreign investors to come to the Gambia here, invest on our ocean, take 100% of what they harvest? Perhaps we could set a law that will say all these trawlers that are fishing in the Gambia here should have one landing place where out of their harvest, 10% of it can stay in the Gambia here, or 20% or 30%, set a percentage that will stay in the Gambia here. Then our fishmongers, our mothers and our sisters that depends on the ocean will not fail, and the country will enjoy from this. Perhaps maybe not the economy, not the financial economic growth, but the food sustainability will remain. That is, having 10% of some of these trawlers what they harvest can feed the entire combo.
The policy must be built from proper assessment of your economy. That's why we talked about the expert bank.
Expand, okay.
Anybody who wants Gambia to develop, from the very inception, must develop it through the collective intelligence of its citizenry.
Sure.
And that's, for me, that's what I would intend to do. And immediately you can understand your potential in getting trawlers. You will know it from the base of your economy. If you have the potential, go and get the trawlers and get your people to fish it and land it and provide your job.
There you have 100% impact.
But if you see that you have limitation and you must be realistic, you also acknowledge your limitation and said, yes, okay, these people will be able to fish on Gambian water. But if you're going to fish here, 50% of those people who are going to be there as crew must be Gambian.
Very well.
When you land them, you must land this percentage on Gambian soil to be processed.
Sure. Then we will enjoy the food sustainability.
And this is the license will not just, it's something that you must do. You must provide a trawler, you must provide a landing site. That is what you ought to do. That's how you bring about development.
Sure, absolutely.
You are spot on. And the reason why we have been underdeveloped, because we always say, well, what can we do for ourselves? So come and take everything.
Very well.
I am saying no person, no investor must ever be allowed under a government that I belong to or government that I run to come and take ownership of the land of our people.
Oh.
You can only come and invest.
Sorry.
So, and the landowner will be there and it will be shareholding. Your investment will be a share, and the landowner owns the other share.
Absolutely.
And therefore share.
Sure.
You cannot also come and get the business here without having Gambian partners. That is the way that you ensure that the wealth of our nation will not all go away. It will also stay here to develop our country. Those are benchmarks.
Absolutely.
Look at Kafuta. You see somebody come and own all the land and use the women, they go and cultivate potatoes, etc. And what do they earn?
More like third class everyone.
What do they earn? Nothing.
Absolutely.
The children cannot even go to school. So we are saying that no, that must not continue. Why can't you not have a cooperative bank that will give those women the fertilizers, the farming implements, so that they produce it and then that goes into their own coffers? That is the type of development that we are talking about that will change the face of the nation, rather than a nation of poverty where more than 48% of the people and less than what is required to survive. Living in abject poverty, that will be changed by our own capacity to take charge of our destiny.
Absolutely.
And I'm willing to come back to discuss on all those issues, development issues.
That's going to be the next thing I would really love, because having people like you on a 1 hour show is more like not even a show, our discussion, I would even call it. I wished I was having the power to move this show up to like 10 hours being with you, because I know even 10 hours is not even okay. But like Mandinka Grace will say, Kudi Mamaka Jones Mume, Salo Jom for Wati Dola. I'm so happy. Thank you so much for coming to the Golden Bee Revolution. The Golden Bee Revolution is a show that is here to empower Gambians, to send clean and clear information to the Gambians, scout young Gambians that can build the Gambia, because we believe we can make it in the Gambia here. There is life in the Gambia like life in any other country. I don't mind, let them attack me. Why are you always talking about Gambia and not considering other countries? I see there are humans, we are humans. So I have to put that mind into the people. My team have to search for people that they think can put the minds of young people online, on track. We can do it. If they have it Messi, we can have Messi here. If they have the Barack Obamas, we have it here. And looking at you, listening to you, and all the points you've made, there's nothing different I can compare with Mr. Martin Luther King, the late Martin Luther King, of giving a speech in 1986. He did it. You are inspiring. You are sending clear messages to the people. So we can do it, and then there's no need to give a comparison here. But why I'm doing this is to show the Gambian people that we are not marginalized. We have the power. No one is stopping us from showing what we can do. So the Golden Bee Revolution will keep doing this to bring people to the global stage, I call it. I named it the global stage because I think it's a stage where we can send information. We are not limited. Even if the people are in the Pluto or Mars or wherever planet they are, we want them to know who we are. We are Gambians and we can do it. So, being given a warning by the technicians, I am scared that I am really going very far. I will give you a 1 minute. Sorry, I'm giving you a time here, time limit. A 1 minute to say a final word, so we can.
Well, the final word is where I have always started my message, that we must become thinkers. We must become inventors. We must become builders. Then we'll be the architects of our own destiny. We have the brain. We can utilize it, energize it, to be able to take charge of our destiny. If we fail to do so, we live under the mercy of blind destiny, from poverty, leave it from the cradle to the grave. We do not deserve that. We deserve better. We deserve not to live like beasts in the field. We deserve not to live like the wretched of the earth. We deserve to live like human beings. And human beings should live in liberty, dignity, and prosperity. That we should aspire for, that we should strive for. That is what we can achieve if we join together and do like you are doing. Inspire each other to know that we have the capacity to be who we wish to be, if we are determined to be that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Halifa Sallah of Serekunda East, National Assembly Member. Serekunda, excuse me, I just limited to Serekunda East. Wish you good luck on the long run. The Gambia is here for you. We trust you. We trust your capacity that you can keep giving us a message on inspiring us to become a good citizens. A special thanks and appreciation goes to my camera team and True Room. Thank you so much for being patient with us. We've spent too much of time, but this is how it is. Sometimes we have to be the people that will break the law, but breaking it to serve a positive cause. Thank you so much. See you next week, Tuesday. Bye-bye from us.